Namaste. Welcome. It's good to see you all. Welcome, 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 welcome.
Welcome.
Namaste. Well, so here we are again. The again part is always the interesting part because it's always an opportunity to be new. So again would be carrying something from the past. So we end the again now and we start the new. Something about the nature of this quality I'm speaking of came to me this morning. I was looking out the window in the kitchen and we just had a fresh snow. The sun was breaking through. It was raining. The mountains were spectacular. And I'm looking at the plum tree and I recognize it is so unbelievably rich that I cannot swallow it all. Even though I'm looking at a tiny fragment of this creation, it was a rising sense of overwhelm in the beauty, in the immediacy, and the unspeakable truths that are behind this moment as I am perceiving experiencing existence. It is like eating it. So it's not like seeing it. It's like integrating, and it takes me apart in the integration. Like I don't know how to be all that. It reminds me of the years when I was an artist, when I would just be walking and I would see a relationship of a tree with a leaf and a trunk and a landscape, and I would just stop in the perfection of the arrangement of existence. So I speak of this as an immediacy, but it's also a love, a recognition. It's in the category of I am here now in all of it. Restoring ourselves to that possibility is, you might say, the fundamental outcome of this work. To be able to access freely and in immediacy, without distraction, without past, without future, what it means to be you in existence. The inherent potentialities, the inherent realities that are behind our own existence that we take for granted. Because soon after that glimpse, I realized how consciousness infuses life and makes it real. Otherwise, it's just dead. It's just dead matter. It only comes into existence when it's experienced, when it's perceived, when interaction, when relationship occurs between the perceiver and the perceived. It's the paradox of this. I saw my brother's body right within some hours after his death, and the body was just dead meat. And it was just like, so where'd you go, George? Heaven or hell? I was curious. You went to heaven. Son of a bitch. Get free card wherever he goes. Anyway, the principle being is, without life, matter is just dead shit. If there's no one there to see it, even the dead shit can't be appreciated, can't be experienced, can't be recognized, can't be known. So we are the animators. We're the means by which existence comes into existence. We are the creators. We're the actualizers. We're the ones that got lost in this, and we're the ones that experience and know this and we're the one that holds it all. So this is chapter 15 of the Bhagavad Gita. But the Bhagavad Gita talked about this today. One thing I do all the time is I read the Gita every morning. Same old tattered books falling apart, keeping it together with rubber bands. I recognize that one book, any one book perhaps, can be the continuous reminder of the understanding and the recognition of what it means to exist. The key is our ability to perceive. So for me, yes, it's the same book, but it's an opportunity to be with it anew. So there's a dropping of the again and the new now, the beginning of the next again, whatever that might sound in language. So I was reading chapter 2, and in the context of what I'm going to come to today, I recognized everything is here. Chapter 2's got the whole Gita. It's all here. And every time I read it, I see a new aspect, or I see the whole thing, or I get what's arising in my circumstances of my life in a new context. And because I've chosen it, because I choose to attend to it, because I've broken through the habit of what I would otherwise do in my daily life, and I've made this more real. It's one of the first things I do. Something in that act of creation makes this book a means of accessing the reality of the truth of what I am. And of course, the truth of what we all are. If nothing else but an inherent possibility or an actualizing possibility. So a few verses. 63. Untruth has no existence, and truth never ceases to exist. The knowers of truth have come to this conclusion after scrutinizing both these maxims. Untruth has no existence. There is no such thing as untruth. All there is truth. Now, what is truth? That alone which pervades this universe is indestructible. No one has the power to destroy this imperishable substance. It is never born, nor does it ever die. It comes into embodiment again and again. It is birthless, eternally present. It's not slain when the body is slain. Arjuna, one who knows the soul to be birthless, imperishable, and eternal, how can he kill anyone, or how can he be the cause for killing? As a person changes worn out clothes for new ones, so also the soul discards worn out bodies and takes on new bodies. It is unmanifest, unthinkable, and immutable. And even if you think that the soul is subject to constant birth and death, you still should not grieve. Whosoever is born shall die, and rebirth is inevitable for the dead. Therefore, you should not grieve over any of this. Beings are unmanifest before birth and unmanifest after death. They are manifest between these two states. Then what is there to be grieved for? Arjuna, the soul that dwells in the body of all beings can never be slain. Therefore, you should not grieve for anyone or anything. So there is a principle, I would say actually a pillar, a foundational quality of ourselves, which is eternal, which is currently inhabiting your body. It's currently thinking your thoughts, believing it's its own. It's currently feeling the energy in your body, thinking it's happening to you and to your body alone. It's this organization that's eternal and unchanging, that's taken on a form and become us. So just remembering this, just hearing these words can access for some of you, the quality of what I'm going to be speaking of today. It's not a principle. There are many principles that have to do with the innate condition we are in the midst of without knowing, but it is a pillar. A pillar means this is the foundation in which the universe organizes. There are three pillars. The first pillar is our birth. Without a birth, of course, there's no death. And then the second pillar is death. Without death, there can be no birth, because things have to be born to die. So those two pillars by themselves would not actually explain anything or have anything be so. No purpose, no organizational principle. They would be just this event happens and this event happens. I'm born, then some point later I die. And there's nothing beyond that. That is a condition that most people live in. That the only reality is by the beginning goalpost and the ending goalpost. And of course, the ending goalpost isn't about winning the game, because if that's all you're using for defining it, it's the end of the game. So the nature of the two pillars are pretty drastic. You can see the birthing happening in the woman who carries the child, and you can see evidence of it when the baby separates itself from the body and screams its existence into existence. It screams into existence. Not a happy event for most children. And then there's the death. It comes slowly or suddenly. But at some point, it becomes apparent to that which was born that is headed towards something. It's kind of like following towards an inevitability. There's a diminishings of things. And then at some point, that too ends. So what happens between those two? At the level of between the two pillars of birth and death, nobody knows. Whatever conjecture would have to be an extrapolation of someone who has been born and who is going to die, or an interpretation of it, even me. All I can say is that I've experienced all of this from having a body. If I didn't have a body, there would be nothing. So the nature of what we're trying to come to is a recognition that there is a third pillar. There is a foundational principle in which everything then comes to balance in each other, comes to order, and starts evidencing the purpose of our existence. It starts evidencing something within us that somehow knows, when it's between those two pillars, that something's missing. The price of that missing piece at different stages of our life becomes poignant, but we're looking in the paradigm that exists between birth and death. So there's no fulfillment from those things that arise within those two pillars. There is something else. What is that? Can you feel that, if nothing else, but a sensation of separation from it in your body, or as a location that I am speaking to at this moment that's experiencing it? Because that's what I talk to. I talk to that third pillar that you are, and that's the only one that can receive this and make use of it. Our time between the first two pillars is always and again and again and then again and again and then againing and then againing and then againing and then againing. Because from the beginning, there's no conclusion to again until the end. And then there's no evidence, no knowing of another beginning within the two pillars. So I'm not speaking something that's alien to you. I'm just speaking of a tremendously important third factor that we don't pay attention to, that the world does not pay attention to. They don't recognize its importance. They don't recognize how fundamental it is to the wholeness of what it means to exist as a self-aware human vehicle for consciousness. This third pillar is what makes everything that happens between the first and the second pillar real. It's what makes birth and death and the life between real. It's the reality creator, reality maker. It makes things real. It brings things to life. It brings things into existence. It gives things a relative assignment of importance. It allows us to not only recognize them, but also be able to experience them, to be able to understand them, and to work with it in light of a possibility that may not be apparent, as all possibilities are when they start. They're a whim, or they're a quiet thing that's rising up like a bubble that wants to have a voice, becoming articulate as it rises up, coming to the surface, finding its words, coming into existence in some form of action, in some form of doing, in some form of imaginings. Imaginings are one of the expressions of the rising of the soul as it looks for something beyond what is apparent. To be able to create, to bring something in imagining, if nothing else, a possibility that lies inherent, that you sense within yourself, that could be, should be, ought to be, is there, but can't find it. This has become very apparent to me these days. When I went to India for the first time in 3 years or so, this recognition of what this third pillar is was represented by Mount Arunachala. It's a physical object, a mountain rising from a plain. In which humanity has built a world around it. In India, in Theravada specifically, the third pillar stands and life and death revolves around it. It's a symbol of the reality where a principle that we in the West ignore is the dominant feature of the organization of life and death in that culture. The recognition of the third pillar is foundational to the inherent sacredness that India somehow carries, where other parts of the world cannot. And every full moon, you see humanity gathering. Sometimes hundreds of thousands of people walk around this mountain. They're living their lives, they're shopping, they're eating, they're resting, they're talking, they're chatting, and completely oblivious on the apparent surface level, but their soul is carrying them on a journey as a pilgrimage around this third pillar, as a remembrance, which they then bring back into their lives and has them come the next full moon and the next full moon. And again they do until this third pillar becomes as real as all our other agains. Without the third pillar, we're not living. We're just instruments for all the forces and factors at play between birth and death. We actually do not come alive until we awaken or find a voice or an access point to this third pillar within ourselves. Within us, it is experienced as a staff, a rod, an anchoring quality of our own existence that in itself needs no rationalization or justification or explanation. It stands. It stands alone in the truth of what it is, even as life and death goes on all around it. Finding this place, this location, this possibility within ourselves is now the purpose of the focus of the program I'm going to be speaking of today. It is to include all three pillars, but uniquely organized around one pillar, that which is beyond both, but includes both. In India, it's called the triumvirate. They worship it. The physical object. It was a mystery to me because there was a book on that topic and I would read the book and it made no sense to me. But when I finished reading the book, each time I felt that I'd accessed something fundamental. Like each time I go to Tiruvannamalai, each time I go to the mountain, I pay little attention to it because in my person between birth and death, it's been there so many agains that is part of my againing. But for some reason, this time, it was the end of the againing and it landed in a way it hadn't landed before, just as every time I read the Gita, it lands in a way that it never landed before, should I continue to read the Gita. But I recognize that in the organization of what I've become and my work and what's now coming through, that this is fully possible here in this world of againings. A something fundamentally true and new, always newing, self-existing in its own newing truth, and that is transmittable. That literally it can be entrained into another person's body. Literally, scientifically, objectively, that when people are in the physical proximity of our Arunachala, they are entrained with a principle that stays with them. They say the one who lives around Arunachala, when they pass, that is the end of all their births and deaths, even if they are completely unaware of anything spiritual. But it's the principle, not the mountain. It's not the principle even, it's the pillar. The principle is how it works. The pillar is the truth of it without any need for working or doing. It just isness. Birth is isness. Death is isness. This third pillar is isness, in which all the other two isnesses arise. So there's nothing more important than knowing this third pillar. You actually don't start living life until you find it within yourself. You're simply a tool or an instrument of the three gunas, or the moods and the beliefs, the impressions and samskaras you picked up, the desires that still run you, the hopes and the wishes and the imaginings. They're all defined by whatever content may be arising between these two pillars of birth and death. And yes, you make glimpses of that which is beyond death and before birth, but they're just fringe elements. They're not the thing itself. They're just two have a beginning and an endings. They too are part of duality. They too are an expression of the three energy waves. No, we're here to know that which is beyond all that as a direct, felt, recognized quality of our own embodied being. So if there is a mission for humanity, a purpose for living, this should be it. Because once we do find it, we truly begin to realize the miracle of what we are and what existence is and what each human being, no matter how obscured or unaware they are, is as well. So it's a complete different paradigm. Then how do you live within that frame? And that is important. How we live when we wake up, when we begin to wake up to that quality within ourselves, becomes the means of becoming real in our outer lives, becoming the fulfillment of that realization comes in the process of the activities that happen between birth and death. It doesn't happen sitting on top of a mountain in a serene, unchanging reality that you are. It needs engagement to be deeply found and recognized in the very cells of your body, as well as your vital and mental nature. When the pillar comes, the mind shuts up. It's just silent, stopped. Still, the body becomes still. There's no sense of future or past. All of this is meaningless, or it doesn't have any relevance to the immediacy of what's happening in that stoppedness. It just stops. And those moments of being stopped is where we get refreshed. It's where we get restored. There's two ways of finding this pillar. One, strip everything away until nothing exists of the world of beginning. And the other is to experience the transmission of one who is in that state. This is the nature of the principle called guru. Guru literally means, it's a label for the third pillar, that which is beyond this and that which is beyond birth and death, that which is beyond the three gunas, unknowable by anything that could know it from within the two previous pillars. So Arunachala is the guru, embodied. And even though it's not a living being, there's something of the truth that it stands for that's been empowered by the attention of many living beings who have lived their lives aligned with that third pillar within themselves. They have made it sacred, as do wittingly or unwittingly the vast quantity of Indians who walk around that mountain every full moon, and often every day in between. Stragglers, sensing something, not knowing what it is, but taking the action that's aligned with it. So something has shifted while I was in India with the people who were there. I felt myself able to go into a person's body and plant and work with establishing that principle within themselves. And this was new. I've experienced transmission before. I know it typically never lasts. But it may some people last longer than others, and some people it's a trigger point and sends them and catapults them into their next stage of the journey. But this lands and grows. It's the analogy of radioactivity. It's like a pellet of radioactivity that goes in and starts converting everything into itself from the inside out. Its process is a catalytic conversion of the organization of the body, so that even though the mind and the vital and the outer life activities are endlessly feeding the beginning, it becomes a growing quieting, a growing establishing of something other than those things. This is transformation. The body gets it first. India is very much in their bodies, I mean, in one way, not in their awareness, but they live very much in the physicality. We much less so in the West, much more in the mental and the intellect. So the density of the quality of their devotion takes on something that's closer to the physical body than ours. It is something that to be lived, something to be felt, something to be experienced while the course of the endless activity of life. So that in fact, they're a demonstration of what we in the West have yet to learn to integrate. How to live in our bodies, aligned with the truth of what we are, growing in the capacity and the perfection and the masteries that arise spontaneously when that piece of absolute unchanging silence and stillness is planted in us. So I'm creating a new design for my work. Each year there will be 3 sessions. These are the third pillar sessions. Each will be for 6 weeks with a month in between. The first one starting May 21st. It'll go on for 6 weeks. Then there'll be a month break, and the next one will take up. It will only be available to those who can be physically with me in Washoe. Ideally, it'd be for someone who could do at least in 1 year all 3 sessions, because then it would be planted irrevocably. But one can do 1 session or 2 sessions. It will be engagement. It will put you into an arena of co-creation with a few other people, 10 to 15 people, the same as the immersions I did last year. But the structure will be very much like India. It'll be something we live. It won't be just a 9-day in the same degree of intensity or a 6-day in the same degree of intensity. Although in the first session, it'll be in the middle, we'll have a 6-day, and that will have that intensity. The rest of it will be physical work. It'll be having a role to play. You'll have to be a co-creator, a participant with tasks to do, things to grow into, things you wouldn't do otherwise in the course of your life. So it's an engagement in living outside of the paradigm you've created for yourself to create a new paradigm, a new way of living that can establish itself in your old at some point when you return, or to integrate with your lived life to whatever extent you're capable of organizing your material circumstances to do so. For me, this is it. This is the way this is going next. So to participate with these public live broadcasts, I'm not sure how much we will be doing these. We will continue what we have done, continue to be these Tuesday night Satsangs or World Awakenings. I will continue to do meditations in the morning, but the rest will be private for the people who are here and the few who join us to participate physically in the programs that will occur in the middle of each one of these, and this one will be the 6th day. They will have some degree of ability to join in with the pillar program and the people here, but no more than 3 or 4 of the people who may come. The idea is to create a continuous momentum and energy that builds, that goes between each session, that'll be supported by a core group of people, and then others who join in to learn how to become a core support for the manifestation of this third principle in people's lives. Because we teach how we live. We teach to the day-to-day. We organize the outer life as a reflection of the organization of our purpose. If the outer life isn't a reflection of that, then it needs to be reorganized if you choose to make knowing this principle the most important thing. And you need all that. You need the strength of that choosing, because you are the reality creator. And to break out of an old reality, you have to repeat the new reality again and again and again and again until it establishes itself and becomes senior to all other prior realities you've created before. That's just how it works. I didn't make the rules. This is how it is. I'm telling you what can be done. You have to know or listen to a part of yourself that knows this is true and act on it yourself. Because only through that choice, the purity of that choice, can you truly become or begin to manifest that principle within yourself. Some of you, it's already there. It's already living you. But the full focus has not come. The full capacity to break out of the shroud of the past has not come. This ability to create new is still faltering, still struggling. So this is an ongoing, like it is in India, opportunity to keep renewing the most important thing to live for in your lives. This isn't just my perspective, I'm sorry. If I've gotten anything, if anything has come to me of any value, it's this recognition of the rarity and the importance of this third pillar principle, third pillar. Okay. So this is the launch, as public gets. This should be posted fairly soon if it's not already. Satsang is going to, if she get, yep, she's here. And I'm going, yes, I want her to come back and read the structure.
Right,
Second page.
the structure, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, there will be 3 6-week session programs, all conducted at the Satya Dharma Center in Washoe Valley. Participants will be required to be physically in Washoe during the programs and can commit to 1, 2, or all of these 6-week sessions. There will be a month's break between each of these, allowing time to manage life affairs and for integration and reflection. This program will be limited to 10 to 15 people who will be required to stay as part of the residential community this time. Within each 6-week program will be a major program that will be open to the public, including online remote participants. Residents as well as guests who are in Washoe will be allowed to participate during any one of these 6-week programs, such as meditations and public talks.
Okay, that's the structure.
That's the structure.
Okay, go ahead and read the description.
These third pillar programs will be an extended immersion into the depth of what the Guru principle is. It will have all the requirements of an in-person previous 10-day immersion programs. An entrainment will occur during this time, an awakening of this possibility within you. But it will require a commitment to be physically with me here in Washoe, preferably for all 3 sessions, but one may choose to participate in just 1 or 2. It will put demands and challenges on those who join to actively co-create the vessel for manifesting the possibility this program carries. It will test and challenge you in ways you would not likely encounter otherwise.
I'm just so happy. I just really hope this sinks in and shocks you and throws you into turmoil, destroys your world, so that something new, real can come. But remember, it's an offering. That the fundamental principle here behind it all is love, is the mother, the one who cares for her children profoundly, profoundly enough to be intrusive and demanding and create peril and kill millions of people in one weather event. Ruthless, if need be, but loving and beautiful when she can. Always striving for perfection. Always striving to manifest more fully, more perfectly, more inclusively. Never, never, ever losing her direct awareness of what this 3rd pillar is. Now we will work with people who are sincere and committed. You will have to have been with me and done programs for at least 1 year. I will be reviewing each application, determining if this is the right time or another way. So I invite you to look deep and allow what's true. And also you have to deal with the practical things of your life. So people who come for extended stays, we'll arrange so people can, if they have long online work, that they can do their online work to a limited extent while they're here. Also, some people may have to work to do this program, so that will be accommodated depending upon the commitment of the person. The payment for this program can be arranged to be paid over time. There are no scholarships, but anyone who has the resources who can pay for the program can pay extra to help support a student who would be worthy but couldn't afford it otherwise. This will be a co-creation. Those of you who choose to come will be part of that starting right at the very beginning. There's the invitation. So I leave this with you. This is this Tuesday's Satsang. Next time you hear from me, it'll be about the vital and its transformation in the next Satsang intensive coming up this month. All right, there you have it. Let's spend the rest of our time in some silence and stillness. Find that place within yourself. That is this 3rd pillar. Still, silent, no past, no future.